everyone, welcome to another video. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I found out I was pregnant and what all of my early pregnancy symptoms are and how it's been going. By the way, just a little disclaimer, if you are a guy, you might not want to watch this video. It's going to be TMI because that's just how pregnancy videos are, but I feel like I do want to share the details because I know for me it was super helpful having other videos out there talking about what I was going through, or even when I was wondering if I was pregnant in the months that we were waiting. It was just so helpful to have others out there who were willing to be vulnerable and share their experiences. So I do feel in my heart to go ahead and share my experience. So if you don't want to hear the TMI details, then I encourage you to please go ahead and exit this video now, because we are going to be talking about pregnancy symptoms, period stuff, all of that sort of stuff. I hope this video is helpful to anyone who is either trying to get pregnant, or maybe to those of you who are right here with me. Right now at filming this video, I just turned 5 weeks pregnant. We just found out just about a little less than a week ago. Me and my husband are very excited about it, and I can't wait to tell you everything that's been going on. Let's jump in and talk about how I found out I'm pregnant and what all of my early symptoms have been. This is going to be my husband and I's first child. This is actually my second pregnancy. We had a very early miscarriage back in February. It's currently, well, it just turned May now, so just a couple of months ago. We had a chemical pregnancy, so this is my second time finding out I'm pregnant, but I'm trying not to let that cause me too much fear or worry, and so far this one is going so much better than the first one. So I found out I was pregnant in April, quite later than I did find out in February when we had the miscarriage. We tested very early in February. I tested at about 8 DPO, days past ovulation, and I took a test every single day until we lost the baby. And we lost our little February baby at just 4 weeks, 2 days. As I mentioned, we got a positive test just like a squinter on 8 days past ovulation, and I wasn't even 100% sure, but by the evening of the 9th day, 9 DPO, there was a clear positive, still very faint, but definitely a positive. And then 10 DPO, it was a little darker, but it never got very dark. And then like I said, we lost the baby on 4 weeks, 2 days. So at that point it had faded and it really just never got very dark. That was extremely difficult to go through, and honestly it hit me harder than I ever expected, especially just because it was so early on. My heart truly goes out to those of you who have lost babies at any point in time, but I just can't imagine losing a baby even later, further along. If you have, or you're experiencing that, I'm so sorry, and my heart truly goes out to you. So fast forward, March came around, we didn't get pregnant, and then April came around, and I resisted the urge to test early this time just because it was such a painful experience, just seeing that line never get very dark and then seeing it just fade away, and then to lose the baby. So it was such a difficult and painful experience, and really quite agonizing, taking tests daily and seeing that happen. So it almost made me sick to think about. So I just decided that I would rather not know, and I'd rather just think that my period was a little bit late than know that I lost another baby. So I wanted to find out the next time I was pregnant, because I was really late on my period, and instead of knowing before my period was even supposed to be here. So rather than testing like 8 or 9 or 10 DPO, I decided I would not test again until I was late on my period. I actually had it in my mind that I would test if I was a week late. So in April, I was supposed to start my period on April 26th, and I did not. However, I had been a couple days late over the last few months, and so I didn't really think too much of it when I didn't start it on the day it was due. And I thought, yep, I'm going to wait a full week. If I don't start, I'm going to wait until the very next weekend, because April 26th was Sunday. So I thought it'll be perfect. I'll wait until the next weekend and then I could be sure. Well, Monday, April 27th, I went to work, and it was an extremely stressful and emotional day at work. And I did feel more emotional than normal, but it also was just so stressful, and I've been having a lot more stressful days at work lately, especially with the whole coronavirus going on and just how work has just ramped up for us. I am one of the essential workers, so we do have to go to work, and I work at a bank, and it just, the increase in workload. I also was having some coworker stress, and it just was beyond what I felt I wanted to deal with. And so Monday evening came around, and I decided to take a test because of the amount of stress I was under. I remembered that I also was under a lot of stress in February when we lost the baby, and I just was so worried about what stress could do. So I decided to go ahead and take a test Monday evening. So around 7 p.m. on Monday evening, my husband had actually brought home some beer, and we were sitting down to eat, and I said, I'm going to take a test really quick, and if it's not positive, then I'll have a beer. So I went and I just took a test. It was one of those Amazon cheapies. I will link them below if you're interested in the tests that I use. You can get a big box for really, really cheap. So I got one of those tests started and set it down in the bathroom, and then went back to the kitchen to finish eating while the timer went for like 5 minutes. And then when the timer went off, I asked my husband if he would go look, and to be honest, I had a pretty good feeling that I was pregnant. Even when I first was taking the test, I thought I saw the faintest second line starting to form, but I wasn't sure. But just in the way that I had been feeling, about 3 days before my period was supposed to start, I was getting like waves of slight nausea. Whenever I would be hungry or whenever I would eat, I would just feel a little bit sick. And so I kind of recognized that symptom from February, and I thought, I wonder if I'm pregnant, but I didn't want to think too much into it because there had been months before where I wasn't pregnant and I had symptoms and I was just like so sure, and then I wasn't pregnant. So yeah, I didn't want to put too much thought into it. So I asked my husband if he would go check it for me, and so he went off to the bathroom and looked at it and came out, and he said, well, you probably shouldn't have beer tonight. And I was like, what? Really? Even though I thought that, I just thought I was, and I thought I had seen the slight faint line when I first started the test. It was crazy. So I went into the bathroom as quick as I could, and I got the test, and I saw that the line was so much darker than my other one in February had ever gotten. So as I told you, I took a bunch of tests in February to try to see the line progression, and from 8 DPO, and it never got very dark. So when I saw this one and I saw that the second line was almost as dark as the control line, I was just so happy. That's just exactly what I was hoping and praying for. And although it was a week earlier than I planned to test, it was still later than I took my first test in February. And so the line had a chance to really get dark. And because things were going better and well, the line was very dark, so much darker than my other one had gotten. And by this point, my other one had already faded away. We were so excited, and we decided to quickly grab a clear blue digital, and test that too, just to be even more certain. So we did that right away, and that one of course came up pregnant. And when my husband saw the word, he knew, he really believed it then. I mean, he believed it already, but yeah, that was just like even more believable. So my symptoms were really just about 3 days before my expected period. I started to notice waves of nausea, especially when I was hungry or right after I had eaten. And then around the day that my period was actually due, around that time I started to notice an increase in appetite where I was getting hungrier faster. And then I also noticed that there were just zero signs of my period starting. I just didn't feel like it was going to start. I had felt that nausea several days before, but then my period didn't start. So I felt like that was a sign. And then of course, you know, a day late and we got the super strong positive and the digital positive. And all throughout this 4th week, I was feeling pretty sick in the morning and even throughout the day, where, yeah, especially when I woke up in the morning, I just felt so yucky. The only thing that really helped me was to drink some electrolyte water and suck on some mints. So about the day after I got the positive, I didn't take any tests. I haven't taken a test since because I'm just not going to do that to myself. If you have had a miscarriage similar to what I experienced, I recommend, just for peace of mind, just don't put yourself through that, the whole line progression and all of that. Just trust your body, trust God, and just know that your body knows what it's doing. God has got his hand in this and knows what is best. And so, you know, go to the doctor and let them do the test, but don't try to go crazy doing it yourself, because you might just drive yourself crazy and make yourself so worried like I was. So anyways, a day after I got the positive, again, I was going through a lot of stress at work, which was making me stressed about the baby. And then I was stressing because I was stressing. Stressing because I couldn't stop stressing. You know how that works. But I thought that I saw the lightest bit of spotting. I wasn't sure. It didn't look like it had before, but it looked like the very start. And that is not something I wanted to see, because that's something I was very familiar with. Because of the stress at work and everything, I just ended up taking off that day early. It was Tuesday. Then Wednesday came around and I was like, I have to take time off. I have to just process all of this, and I need to go to the doctor to make sure everything's going okay. I was super worried that spotting was going to start. So I did what I had to do at work in the morning, and I took a personal day and called the doctor to see how soon they could get me in. They got me in the afternoon of the same day. And I asked to have my HCG levels tested as well as my progesterone, because I really think that the primary reason we lost the baby in February could have been from low progesterone, just because I had all the symptoms of low progesterone, where you spot throughout your luteal phase. That's the time between when you ovulate and when your next period starts. If you are bleeding or spotting during that time, you could be low in progesterone. So I was spotting a lot during that time every month, and it was no different when we were pregnant in February. And so I just don't think my body was able to hold the pregnancy because of that, which I had no idea at the time. But just in researching it in the month or two that followed, I found out that that matched my symptoms perfectly. I plan to do another video talking about what I did to correct my progesterone deficiency and why I think we were able to sustain this pregnancy so far, and Lord willing, we will continue to keep this baby until full term and have a healthy baby in this world. Yes, so I will make another video talking about what I did. If you'd like to see that, let me know and I'll get it out as soon as possible. So anyways, Wednesday came around, I just couldn't stay at work. It was just too much, and I took off, got to the doctor. They did test my HCG levels and my progesterone. They told me I wouldn't hear about the progesterone until probably a few days later, and that HCG they would have back to me either that afternoon or the next day. So the next day on Thursday, I was at work and the nurse called me and said that my HCG came back at 7:35. And I know your HCG levels are supposed to double every 48 hours. So when you just have your first HCG test, you don't really know a lot from that. But when she said 7:35, I was a little nervous because I was, I don't know, just hoping for a really high number. and I knew I was still early along. I was only 4 weeks and 4 days. So, but I asked her, well, actually I was 4 weeks and 3 days when I did the test, since it was the day before, and I had found out I was pregnant at 4 weeks 1 day. So I asked her, should it be higher based on when, you know, I think I got pregnant, and when I think, you know, when I first found out, should it have gotten higher more than that? And the nurse really made me nervous, because she just flat out said, well, it's low. So we want you to come in tomorrow, which will be 48 hours on Friday, and retest, because we want to see that it has doubled. So yeah, I was sick, completely nervous, and really had to fight to hold on to hope, because just her saying that it was low and then me wishing I had heard a higher number, I really was afraid that the same thing was going to happen again. I will say that our first pregnancy, I didn't even get to the doctor before we lost it, so I have no idea what my numbers were looking like in that one. So I was just sick that entire day. I mean, I was scared to death. And unfortunately, the day was so busy and so stressful, I had no time to really process anything that was going on. So I just felt entirely sick. I felt guilty for feeling stressed, and I felt bad for stressing about my job, and just, it was really bad. So I actually tried to take off that day too, but my boss didn't approve it because someone else had already taken off the day, and so I had to stay at work. So it was just really hard, just having all that happen and having all that go on, and just feeling so scared that we were going to lose this baby too. So I suffered through Thursday. I still felt like I was spotting. I felt like it might have been slightly increasing, and I was just sick, thinking it might get worse. So I was just scared to death, and I just wanted to be excited, but it was hard. So they asked me to come in first thing Friday, so that since they closed halfway through the day, they wanted to get my results back to me before they closed. And so I went in at 7 a.m. before my work and got my HCG tested again. Whew, I went to work just feeling so sick and uncertain of what was happening, and just got extremely nervous. So when 11 o'clock came around, I knew they were closing at noon. 11 o'clock came around, I called them on my lunch break and asked, do you have the numbers yet? And the nurse was in with another patient, so they couldn't get back to me. So they told me the nurse would be there later and they would call later. So I was just a nervous wreck. But around, and throughout this time, really my only symptom was just nausea and feeling sick to my stomach. So finally around 1 or 2 o'clock, the nurse called me, and I just ran to a private office to take the call. And when I first heard her voice, I didn't think it sounded promising. Her voice didn't seem super excited, so I was just like, oh no. But she said, your numbers have doubled, and they went from 735 to 1,488. And really that was less than 48 hours. So it was really only about 40 hours in between the two tests. So I was so relieved, so excited. And then she also told me my progesterone levels had come back and looked normal. She said everything is looking great, and to call them on Monday, which is tomorrow, to set up another appointment with them and just start talking about family history and all that stuff and get that going. Oh, so it was like a huge weight lifted. So I immediately called my husband Doug and let him know, and he was so relieved too. I could just hear it in his voice. He was so relieved to hear that news, and we both felt like we could finally breathe. Also on Thursday, I made the decision to turn in my 2 weeks notice to my job, just because of everything we went through in February, losing the baby, and then now with the coronavirus, the increased workload, the increase in stressors at work, the issues I was having with my coworker, and just a tremendous amount of stress. And that I just did not want to put that on my pregnancy and this baby's health and my health. So Doug and I talked about it, and we kind of talked through a lot of things, and we both came to peace about me quitting my job. We already were planning to have me quit whenever I got pregnant, we kind of planned I'd work through the pregnancy and then quit my job permanently once we had a child, because the goal is for me to stay home with them. So this was a lot sooner than we had planned, but we had set our life up in a way that we can live on one income and everything like that. So it was really scary. That added an extra stress on top of everything else, just trying to decide how and when and how to do this whole quitting thing. But we did go ahead and do it, and I turned in 2 weeks notice on Thursday, and that was a huge relief too. Once I got that turned in, I felt like I got that turned in, I heard the numbers were looking good, and my stress reduced so much already. Whew, and just knowing that I'm not gonna have to deal with the stressors at work anymore, I feel like every stress has been lifted. It's an amazing feeling. Also on Friday, so I got the good numbers, and then I was about 4 weeks, 5 days on Friday. At least I think that's what I am, or was. I also felt like by that evening that the spotting was starting to clear up a bit. The rest of week 4, I really just had some fatigue kicking in. My appetite has been continuing to increase a bit. And then, yeah, I just feel extra tired towards the end of the day. And then the nausea actually was starting to lift towards the end of week 4. So that was good. I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I also had some breast tenderness throughout week 4, and nothing crazy, nothing too bad, but definitely have noticed it from time to time. I just want to say that if you're watching this video and you're wondering if you might be pregnant too, just know that some months I felt for sure I was pregnant and then I wasn't. And then honestly, the months that I didn't really have that many symptoms leading up to it. So my really only symptoms that I have been like nausea and some breast tenderness. Nothing too crazy. The other symptom that I had in both pregnancies have been like this sensation in my stomach area down here, just like my lower abdomen. I have felt some tinges of pain, pretty low down on both sides. Either side it'll switch off. I also have felt some pains like just on my sides, just like here and here, and then it almost feels like electricity like in your stomach or like lower abdomen, kind of like electricity, just like a lot of movement, almost like butterflies down there. And that happened with my pregnancy in February too. And now not as much as we're now into week 5, but definitely in week 4, especially at the beginning, right after I found out, I felt a lot of that going on. And so besides that though, I haven't had any crazy symptoms or anything like that. I haven't had really any cravings. I think towards week 5, my sense of smell was a little bit stronger because some things were kind of like grossing me out, like certain vitamin, my husband's multivitamin, the smell of it is really gross to me. And then one day he heated up pasta yesterday and the smell was so strong it made me feel sick. So yeah, some little things like that. Also something I want to mention in case anyone out there has this too, but I also have an MTHFR gene mutation. I have the C677T mutation and I have 2 copies of them. So that means one from each parent. That can bring in some risks in pregnancy, especially because I can't absorb folic acid like people without that mutation. So I have to take the natural form, which is folate. I do take a very good prenatal, and I also take additional methylfolate, the natural form of folic acid. I take that in addition to my prenatal. I'm going to link below all of the vitamins that I take and recommend. And yeah, let me know if any of you have MTHFR mutations, because this really can affect your pregnancy. But yeah, that wraps up this video. Those are all the symptoms I have had, and let me know in the comments if you're here with me, if you are trying to get pregnant, if you are currently pregnant, what number you're on. Like I said, this is number 1 for us. We are so grateful for every day that we've got this little being growing, and every time I feel sick, I am honestly thankful and grateful because it just means I'm still pregnant. So I'm praying every day that this little guy stays with us full term and we get to meet this little baby on this earth. So let me know in the comments what videos you would like to see, if you do want to see pregnancy videos at all. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I will see you really soon, and I'm excited that I'll be able to make videos more often since I'm leaving my job. So see you in the next one. Bye!